As young designers, we were often told that the best designs are the one that easy to use, one that does not require our users to think, if possible at all, and are usually completed with just one click or maybe less. And while it's not entirely wrong, today I wanted to talk to you on how easy designs aren't always a good thing, and that sometimes adding a bit of frictions in your designs and user journeys can be very beneficial. And really, it's not just for the users, it's also beneficial for the business. So my name is Jane Hazar Saputra, and I'm a product design lead for HSBC. I started my career as an information architect in design agencies in Canada before joining a series of startups in Indonesia, and now I'm in London. At HSBC, I lead their security and anti-fraud platform. So believe it or not, the sole existence of the product I'm working with right now, which is security and anti-fraud platform, is actually to create frictions in the design. And over the last years that I worked closely with it, it actually changed a lot of the way I'm thinking. It made me question a lot of things that I learned as a designer. And it shows me a very different side of the design coin. And today, I wanted to share with you what I have learned so far and how I've realized that, adding that bit of frictions can actually be very beneficial despite what we have been taught. So what is friction and how does it affect design? And is it really all that bad? Now, think of your house, or more specifically, think of your front door. Your front door acts as a barrier against the outside world, really. And to enter your house, you have to take additional steps. So you need to turn the key, you need to open the door, then get out, you close the door, and for extra security, jiggle the door handle, making sure that the key works or you don't forget to actually lock the door. So we all have our own rituals, and it takes a bit of a time to do all these rituals every single time you try to go in and out of your house. But I can still assume that every one of us would still prefer having a front door rather than not. And this really brings me to lesson number 1, which is adding frictions could be equal to security. Now, think of your bank account and your login page as your front door. Adding a login as part of your user journey is, technically speaking, a friction. It adds an extra steps before you can see your bank account balances or any accounts really. And sometimes it takes a little bit of a time to get this step right. Maybe you enter a wrong characters in the login details, or in my case, forgotten my password all the time. But overall, no one would not want a login steps for their bank accounts. Having this added step or friction strengthens the feeling of security for your users. What it does is ensures that nobody would be able to access their accounts, and also a strong login protections increase your users' trust in the product, in my case, the bank. And ultimately, I think that could only be a good thing. And it brings us to lesson number 2 that I've learned so far, which is add frictions to make users stop and think. So especially when one is working with the banking industry, sometimes we want our users to actually stop and think before they give their consent. And this is, I think, where frictions really can help. For example, if we take into account the money transfer situations, if we are following the thought process that no frictions is always the best for users, for example, it might go like this. Users select who they wanted to send to from their bank account, and then they enter the amount of money to be transferred, and then they press send, and voila, it's all done. Except they just accidentally press an extra 0 and send for £100 instead of £40. So frictions in this case could be an added confirmation screens that lets users review and consent all the information written that they have input, making sure that everything is correct before them sending it over to the bank. It can save the users from accidentally pressing incorrect amount or sending money to the wrong person. And for the company, it actually saves a call to the customer centers. So one of the projects we worked on last year, I think would be best described how adding friction isn't always a bad thing, but it could be a really great thing. So we noticed that one of our login page wasn't performing well through analytics. There were a large drop-off than we expected to happen, and users took a long time to go through the journeys itself, which is not a good thing. And then, so the design and product team huddled to figure out what could be the potential issues. So we scrutinized the design, and then we realized that, you know what, our initial approach of providing users with a way to log in right away might actually be the problem. It's really mind-blowing. A smooth login is a problem. That was definitely a surprise. And this is because the so-called login page didn't just contain logged in. It also includes other items unrelated to the logged in steps, and that other users might actually go to the screens to do those tasks. So the original designs, as you can see here, emphasize login activity. And we suspected that the drop-off happens because of the cases where users weren't actually trying to log on. So based on this hypothesis, we create an extra screen. You can think of it as an additional steps, really. And these screens allow users to easily see all the available functions at a glance. It does not give too much dominance from one or the other. So as expected, there were concerned with this approach because it is one extra screen. Users have to click one more time to go through before they can actually log in. So how is this even solving users' problem? The problem where they're taking a long time to log in? And how is this helping with drop-offs if they were given another friction? So we conducted user testing in several different countries to make sure that these was the solutions. This is the answers that we wanted to go through. We also tested it against all the tasks that the users coming to this page wants to do to make sure we got a rounded view. And to our surprise, the results were very promising. We brought the results to the rest of the stakeholders, and after a couple of discussions, it's decided to launch the new login page to several markets. And as everyone knows, it does take a couple of months for analytic data to stabilize, especially if you're releasing it on a mobile app. So we huddled back in the group to see the data after 3 months. And really, to our surprise, we found out that the time to log on had been slashed by 50% compared to the previous design. We also found out that drop-offs had gone down by 10%. So the solutions really does work. To this day, it's really mind-boggling, really, to see the additions of an extra screen makes users go through their tasks much more efficiently. And even though we now learn that friction is inherently important, I think it is also important to note that the delivery of the friction itself matters. As part of security, part of our designs usually involves extra steps to ask users many questions and provide them with lots of information. And just to remind you, this is the frictions we need to ensure that you are who you say you are, and nobody is really trying to impersonate you and do bad things. If you ever open a bank account or ask for a mortgage, for example, I think you'll be very familiar with it. And of course, our initial experience looks something like this. The questions go on, and to no one's surprise, lots of drop-offs that's happened here. And we went back into our analytics to see where the drops happens, and then we had a chat with our users that actually drop off, and talk with the frontline agents that ended up having to help these users to see where the problems actually lay. We found out that the issue lay around our users not having the information needed handy and feeling overwhelmed by these important looking procedures. It is honestly comical to get these responses from the users when we actually designed this experience to do less click by providing all in one page. During rounds of brainstormings and idea generations, someone said this oldie but goodie quotes by Creighton Abrams. When eating an elephant, take one bite at a time. I think it actually perfectly summed up our situations. Here we are trying to make users digest mountains of information to them in one go. Maybe what we needed to do is actually to cut it into bite-sized pieces for them. The concerns that comes then, and honestly very justified, is won't users get anxious because they cannot see where the end was? Because what we're trying to do is basically we're trying to cut up mountains of information in one page into multiple different pages. So we design against that as well. The end design goes something like this. First, provide users with the clear steps of what they're going to go through, and then break the information that they need to digest into very smaller pieces. And last but not least is to indicate where they are in the process and encourage them to continue. As always, we tested the solutions first to see if it generates any red flags and concerns from users. And when it didn't, we released it to the wild. And honestly, the results could not be better. While it doesn't necessarily speed up the process, it does cut down our drop-offs and increase the completion rate, which I think is the bottom line. And these two designs, the wall of questions and bite-sized questions, it actually delivers the same numbers of questions, yet the receptions is very different. So what have we learned? That friction is not the enemy, but a tool. And just like any other tool in our design arsenals, there needs to be a balance in its applications. After all, we've learned that too much friction is also not a good thing. So how do we really balance it? When should we use frictions? And how can we use this tool at its best? And so far in my experience, I've seen it best used for three circumstances. Circumstances that requires privacy and security, consent, or any irreversible situations. In privacy and security, frictions is added to keep customers and products safe. It is there to safeguard not just informations or assets belonging to customers, but also maintaining customers' trust in the product and company, like our front door analogy, basically. The frictions can appear in different ways, such as warning message or maybe a reminder about fraud, and asking users if they really know, who's this person that you're sending money to, for example. Is this your friends? So yeah. In consent, friction is added to inform users that the product needs to use something of theirs to function. Consent is not only ethical, it also shows goodwill from products towards their users. An example of consent could be permission to use microphone, location, camera, or maybe terms and conditions agreement. And lastly, the most common times I've seen friction used in our day-to-day is during irreversible situations, such as confirmation checkout screen, or a warning message before you leave a page, for example. Its purpose is basically to inform users that this is an end to a journey that you're going through. And it might be that changing anything at this point is not always possible. So if they wanted to proceed, they should only proceed if they are sure to do so. The strength of friction use should also then be adjusted depending on needs. So one of the best way to know how much friction is needed and in what form it should appear, it can be achieved by understanding the issues one is trying to solve, really. And then, of course, combining it with validations of solution to actual users and monitor the results through qualitative and quantitative, always helpful. But if there is only one takeaway that one can take from this talk, please let it be this. Friction does not have to be frustrating. Used in the right way, and friction could be your friends in helping the users use your product. Thank you for listening. I hope this sharing could be of use in your design journey.